Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, this episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. And I've been running the Leupold Performance Eyewear, aka the sunglasses, for, about 2 years now. And I've worn a lot of brands of eyewear over the years, obviously as a hunter and a shooter, but also as a fly fishing guide and someone who just spends a lot of time in the outdoors. And I was super impressed right out of the gate with the Leupold Performance Eyewear. I like the switchback frame the best. I've got a couple different lens colors in that. I've got like an amber lens and a gray lens or a smoke lens for bright conditions, and the amber is kind of my all-around. I find myself wearing that lens all the time. I really like the contrast that lens provides. I've worn all kinds of different sunglasses from every top brand out there, and the Leupold Performance Eyewear is number one, hands down for me. If you guys got to check them out. You can go on leupold.com and look at all the different styles and offerings.
We're rolling, dude.
Love it.
Welcome to another episode of the Wingmen Podcast. And I've got Ben Brettingen with me from onX Hunt. Ben, long time no see, dude. We had an opportunity to do a little hunt together last winter. It was a good time. What have you been up to?
Oh, it feels like that was about yesterday. And time has just flown. And pretty soon, before you know it, it's going to be September 1st again. And it's going to all be it's going to be all downhill after that. So, but
yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, no, it's been a good spring, been able to get out and work dogs. And I shouldn't say it was a good spring. It was actually a pretty awful spring. We had snow until about the end of April. So that didn't help for spring dog training, but yeah, I got a new puppy. So that's been kind of my summer so far.
They take up a lot of time, don't they?
Man, you just forget, right? Good thing they're cute. Otherwise, no one would have dogs, or they would just buy them at like $6.
There you go. Yeah, when you train them yourself, when you go through the whole process, it takes up all of your time. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm still working. Obviously, I don't think a dog's ever truly finished. You know, you're always working on something with them,
right?
And I know running drills the last few weeks with mine, even if I shoot for 3 to 4 times a week. In reality, I'm lucky if I get 1 or 2, but it's better than nothing, and just constantly reinforcing those drills. But a puppy is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah. I mean, an adult dog, with my older dogs, it's like I can come end of July, early August, I can tune them up and have them in fighting shape and ready to roll by the season. But a puppy, it's like, yeah, they're a sponge. So everything you teach them now, right, it's going to manifest itself later. So just trying to do as much as I can. And yeah, but it's a never ending process. And then not to mention it's a puppy. So they're into everything. They're chewing.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's fun though. I love it. I wouldn't do it any other way.
No, I hear you. I just got a message last night from a good buddy of mine out here. I bred Hondo to his British female lab, and both pedigrees out the wazoo. They're both great dogs, and so he needed a breeding, and I was like, yeah, man, I can help you out with that. And he just sent me pictures last night. We had 7 pups yesterday, born on the 4th of July, and all 6 of them, all black, 6 females and 1 male.
That's a breeder's best friend right there.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So anyway, that'll be interesting. So my kids will be, after a few days here, my kids will go over and start playing with puppies and socializing and doing all that fun stuff.
So here's the question. Are you going to be the recipient of a new puppy?
Because obviously it's either stud fee or pick of the litter, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know yet. Because Hondo's 2 and Max 11, it would be cool to have one in the middle, but I don't know if I'm ready for a puppy at the moment. You know what I mean? Life is busy.
Yeah,
I don't know. Honestly, it could be one of those deals where we go over there and start playing with them, and we keep one, but I don't know.
Well, it's a slippery slope because I didn't intend on getting another one, but it would obviously didn't take much encouragement. I had a buddy that had him, and he just said, "Hey, do you want one?" And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
That's exactly how it works.
And then I look back, it's like, why did you do that? Like, you don't need a puppy right now. You've got enough going. I've got a 1-year-old daughter, plenty of stuff to do. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll take it. Throw a puppy on top of it. That'll be great.
Yeah, so, I don't know what your home situation is. I know you live in Minnesota, but I don't really have the ideal setup to have another one. And so I live on the edge of town, and I have a big backyard for by Wyoming standards when it comes to living in town.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff out here is little tiny city lots with privacy, chopped up. Everybody lives on top of each other.
Type deal.
Yeah. And I've got I got room, but holy smokes, man. 3 kids, 3 dogs. My wife, she loves dogs. I mean, loves them. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I would like to send one back to Northeast Iowa to my dad and my brother because they need one.
There you go.
But they've gotten the kibosh from my mom and my sister-in-law. So who knows? It'll be what it's going to be. They might. Dad's supposed to be out here late in August to do some fishing with me, and he may get here and see those puppies. They'll be about ready to take home at that point. Might be a different story then.
I know how that works. Yep.
Oh, dude,
too funny.
So Ben, tell us who you are, what you do, how you got into it.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Ben Brettingen, and I work for onX. And what I do for onX is I kind of wear a lot of hats. It's a growing company. It's getting to be a big company, but still do a lot of different things. But kind of my day-to-day main responsibility is I oversee all of the marketing for what we call wing shooting. So everything upland and waterfowl is kind of my day-to-day, whether it's obviously a lot of the marketing aspects, but then as well kind of advocating for those customers, our customers in the app. So features, all of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. A great company to work for. And I get to hunt a fair amount. So I was gonna say, that's the question everybody wants to know. How much do you get to hunt? I get to hunt a lot. I think I just bird hunting alone, like what 80 days a year, and then probably another 10, 12, 14 days of waterfowl, and then turkeys, and then there's spring dog training. So yeah, a fair amount. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, that is the ultimate question that I get all the time. You must hunt all the time. And it's like, no, but I get to hunt a lot. Yeah. I don't think you ever get to hunt as much as you really want, but I'm lucky. And I think we're blessed that we get to do what we love. Yeah. 100%. But surprisingly, I actually did hit the point. I've hit the point a couple of times where it's like, man, I just need a break. Like I love this. I love to do it, but like, I just need to just cool my jets for a second here. So sure. I've never hit that point before, but it was, just all the traveling, you've done it. It's absolutely fantastic. But I know some people, I'm sure you do as well, that they can just go for 2-3 months on end. And it's like, holy cow, that's a lot. I've got a guide buddy out here that I don't know how he does it. He'll guide in Canada early in the season for waterfowl, like September, first part of October. Mm-hmm.
And he comes down here and starts getting his lodge ready, setting stuff up, and does a little bit of big game hunting for himself. And then starting in probably Thanksgiving-ish, November, when we start getting birds around here, he's guiding. And he'll guide solid and run his lodge from, all December, January, and then about half of February, he's here. And then if our geese get stale, like they did last year towards the end of the season, we had a stale weather pattern and he wasn't worth it. He didn't have, he didn't have clients coming in. He's like, I'm done, shuts it down and goes and starts guiding snow geese. And he never stops. It's just all he does. He's single, but he's the only guy I know that goes that hard, in the wing shooting world. Yeah.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for those guys. They're just like, they're just cut out of a different cloth. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So marketing, what is your job on a daily basis? What does that entail then?
So, yeah, the nice thing is it's each day is a little bit different, which I love because otherwise I would get bored really fast. But, it's everything from working with our ambassadors, working with a lot of internal communications, building out, emails and videos explaining how to use the product, as well as, like we've got new features and showing people how to use these new features to become a better hunter. And also a lot of it, like I said, is just that education, because there is so much to the app and so many different ways to use it. And I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of people. So then I can pick up interesting, like, oh, I didn't know that's an interesting way to use that. I'm going to incorporate that into how I teach about the app.
Right.
So a lot of that, I work with all of our NGOs in terms of like Pheasants Forever, Delta, Rough Grouse Society, all of that on the wing shooting side I work with. Just, a lot of it is, some of it's marketing, but a lot of it is just, how can we create more habitat, create more access, so we can get out and do the things we love.
No, I think that's awesome. I think that, onX and Wingmen have been partners since the start, since we started Wingmen, through our parent company, Eastman's. Yep. And I obviously do a ton of stuff content-wise with you guys on the Eastman side in print, and do as much as I can, little tips and tactics here and there on the Wingmen side as well. And I'm going to be picking your brain on some ideas about what you've got coming up, so I can start putting some more of that stuff out on social media. Hey, what do you guys want to see? Yeah. What do you want shown? Because I think the app is a lot more robust than most people realize. I 100%. I think a lot of folks just use it for like, well, who owns this piece of ground when you're out scouting geese, or, I need to know property boundaries. I need to know this, but there's so much more to that. I know for me, as an example, turkey hunting in the springtime, when I'm out running around on a new piece that I've never been on before. This spring, I was in Montana and I was hunting a piece of ground that I'd never walked through before. And I struck a gobble. It was quite a ways away, and I needed to know, without just blundering blindly in there, I need to know what's in front of me. And so I pull up the app on my phone immediately and I start looking, and I'm like, okay, about 50 yards here in front of me, there's an opening that's going to be perfect for me to set up in.
Yep.
I don't think that a lot of folks think to use the app for stuff like that.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like they use it simply like, okay, can I hunt this? Can I not hunt this? A lot of the people will be like, yeah, am I still on the property boundary? But to your point, right? And that's a fantastic way to use it. And then to go above and beyond, right? Like you can go into compass mode, and from there you can use, our pretty much our enhanced compass mode that will lay out distances on that line. So as you're turning your phone in front of you, like, okay, I think that gobbler, I heard that gobble, at 3:00, you turn your phone, you turn on your enhance your rangefinder compass essentially, and you can say, okay, there's a creek at 248 yards. I bet he's on this side of that creek, right? So, yeah, and you could turn on crop layers and be like, okay, well, that's a cornfield, so heck, he might be on the other side of that creek, right? So there's just layers on how deep you want to get down the rabbit hole, and ultimately, I think the more that you do that, I think the more successful you'll ultimately be. At least put the odds in your favor.
No, I agree 100%. I think about when we were in Montana last winter, and we'd try to hunt geese in the morning, and then we'd try to go do some upland bird stuff in the afternoon. And as our outfitters and guides were explaining the lay of stuff to us, I'd pull up my app, the onX app, and as they're walking us through verbally what we're going to do, I'm able to look at the layout of the terrain and go, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I didn't bring a dog, so I was kind of like the blocker on the upwind side, or whatever, a lot of the time, which is fine. But I needed to know, like, okay, there's a big draw coming up here. It's highly likely that any roosters that we're pushing are going to be running up that draw to escape.
Yeah,
all the dogs in the bottom. So I need to do my job and get out around to the head of that and block it.
Yep.
And I was able to do that multiple times, and I was literally walking along using my app. And I don't think people, I agree with you. I think the more people, if they do that stuff, the more success they're going to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a never ending kind of rabbit hole of things to learn and ways to use it. And like I said earlier, I'm always finding, like, talking to people and saying, whoa, like, that's cool. I've never thought to use it in that way. And just gives you different tips and tricks for different situations and ultimately just, increasing those odds. So,
right. I know if I'd have had it back in the day when I lived in the UP, I'd have spent a lot less time looking for my wayward hunting buddies that got lost in bird covers up there.
Yeah, exactly.
I laid it out and said, okay, this is the truck. This is where we're going. This is the loop we're going to make.
Right.
Just follow this route through with onX and you'll be fine. But
yeah.
I
mean, I can't tell you how many trucks I've flagged down. You wander around in a cover or whatever and walk out to a road and be like, don't recognize this one at all. And truck drives by and, hey, where am I?
Exactly. Yeah, some of those northern covers in the upper Great Lakes, just they're vast, and you get in them and you have no idea where you are. But if you have that cached, say you don't have cell service out there, which a lot of times you don't, you have it cached and stored, you pull it up, you can know exactly where you are, exactly where your truck is, and it's on your phone. You don't have to carry a separate piece. I remember back in the old days when onX was a chip that I inserted into my old Magellan GPS. I mean, it was really simple, and that revolutionized stuff by being able to know, okay, this is BLM, and I'm riding this boundary right here. If I go another over here, it's going to be private. So and so owns it. But then it's come so far, and it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, and like it's almost, I don't know, it's almost scary, a little scary for me because, like, give you an example. I was out grouse hunting in Wisconsin, and we were just going to go on a short little trek through this tiny little cut, and we were just getting into birds. And I was like, I left my phone sitting up on the dash of my truck just because we were going to go do a quick loop, and I knew where a couple birds had been hanging out, and we just got into them and kept going and going. And then it started raining, and like the dogs, my pointer, he went on point at like 150, 200 yards at a few times. So I was just following him. And this cut is pretty massive. It was like I mean, I shouldn't say massive. I think it was like a 3,000 acre cut. So, I mean, it was pretty big, and it was raining. It was pandemonium. We were shooting birds, and I finally I had my GPS. I had my Garmin Alpha for running dogs. And But I got out there and it was raining. It was starting to get dark, and I was like, holy cow, I have no idea where I am. Like you're in a cut. Imagine that's 15, 20 feet tall. And I was like, whoa. And I just stopped, and I was like, man, I am like, I don't know, a little bit too reliant on it almost. But then it started to get dark, and I had, I could see the truck on the Alpha, but I was like I should be able to get out of here. And then you start to get a little like frantic, even though there's no reason to get like frantic, because like this thing is bordered by a river.
It's human nature though, dude. When you start not recognizing surroundings, everybody kind of,
yeah. So like I was a little freaked out, and I heard what I thought. There's a bunch of off-road trails, so I heard what I thought was like a pretty busy trail, and got up and walked up this hill, and turns out it was somebody's log splitter. And I said, hey, this is where I parked. How do I get back there? And turns out I was only like maybe 400 yards away. But yeah, like, so just, yeah, it's kind of a weird deal, right? Like I love it. I use it all the time, but it's like, yeah, you got to be a little careful sometimes.
Yeah. It's almost like you become reliant upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you don't have it, or your phone dies, or, whatever,
yeah,
you don't have that ability. I know guys out here that they'll use it obviously on their phone in big game hunting scenarios, and they'll always have an external power source.
Yep.
They'll have a little battery bank that they carry with them so they can charge their phone, because they have all those waypoints, in there. I know last year, kind of back to your point about being in the North Woods, and it's thick. And a lot of my Western guys don't understand how thick some of that Northwood stuff is, and how easy it is to get turned around in there if you've never been in it. Because a lot of stuff out here is open.
Yeah.
You can see landmarks, and getting lost is a lot trickier. But you can get lost at the drop of a hat back in the Great Lakes states or up north or whatever. When I was in Canada last year with Brandon on a bear hunt, we shot 2 bears in the same evening. I shot my bear first, and we went and did the recovery, and Brandon shot a bear, and we heard it. So we went out to check on him, and it's getting dark. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn on my tracking feature, so when I leave this bear, I can go literally retrace my steps back to it. Because yeah, okay. I think we went in the woods right about here when you go back in to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's raining and the blood's washing away, and you're like, okay, at the very least, drop a pin where that bear is so you can walk in there.
Yeah.
Having those abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Brandon made a pretty good hit on his bear, but it went a little further than what we wanted, and we ended up recovering it the next day. But the same thing, we had all turned on our tracking on our onX app, so we could grid out where we'd been and looking for, and where we lost blood that night. Yep. We were able to get right back in the exact same area, and we got on the bear, and we found it the next morning. But without those features, man, that's a lot harder to do. Almost impossible in that thick stuff.
Hey guys, this episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by High Mountain Seasonings. The folks down at High Mountain Seasonings in Riverton, Wyoming have had my business since before I started working at Eastman's, and way before Wingmen was even an idea in my head. I've been making homemade jerky and sausage and you name it, snack and sticks with their kits for a really, really long time. Having the pleasure a couple years ago to go down and take a factory tour and film that, and do a duck hunt with one of the guys from the company, Brian Tucker, was a pleasure. They have such a cool operation down there in Riverton, Wyoming, and to think that their product from little old Riverton spreads out all over the country and into Canada is mind-blowing. I know they do business internationally as well, but it's incredible to me. I can go in so many different places, from the local grocery store to any of the big box sporting goods stores, and find that product. I can go in, I can grab a box, I can take it home, and I can, within 48 hours or 72 hours, I can have some of the best goose jerky known to man. I can put that on a plate, and you wouldn't know it's goose. I mean, a lot of guys be like, wow, this is amazing venison jerky. And it's like, hey, thanks. Yeah, you're eating goose. Like, what? This is goose? Thank you, High Mountain Seasonings. It's not just jerky kits, though, that those guys do. They have a whole ton of products. So I would recommend that you go over to highmountainjerky.com and check out the full assortment of products that they've got down there in Riverton, Wyoming.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say, to your point, like, oh, we went a little farther than you thought. That's like, I don't know. For me, it's like, that's the famous last words where I'm like, oh, like it's just a little bit farther. And then you get in there and it's like a little bit further turns into a little bit further. Right. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, dang. And that's when I, turn on the phone and be like, okay, all right, the truck's back there, or this is back this way. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to, I shouldn't say it would be a lot different having to go back 20, 25 years ago and do it. You could obviously still do it, but it just makes it so much more easy, safer, all that.
Yeah, we always had, the pin-on compass on your bird vest. On my Filson strap vest, I always had that old Marbles brass pin-on compass. That was kind of the Northwoods staple. Everybody had one. Yep. Went everywhere with you. And as long as you kind of had an idea, you could find your way out of stuff. As long as you knew where. Okay, yeah, I've been walking roughly southeast, hunting this cover. I got to work my way back to the northwest, and yeah, you get out. You might come out on a road 3/4 of a mile from your truck, but you're out. And with the app, man, you can walk right back, and you don't waste the time. You don't waste the extra effort. Yeah, I don't know. It has revolutionized so much, obviously, of what we do, but it's super cool. How did you get started with the company?
Yeah, so I mean, a bit of a long story, but I didn't go to school for anything marketing related. I actually went to school for natural resources and rangeland management and fire ecology, and was all set up to do to continue that path, and had an opportunity to work at a little local regional outdoor magazine, and didn't pay anything, but I was, fresh out of college. I was all excited and it was great. I got to meet a lot of people and kind of just get my foot into the industry. So that was great. Did that for about a year and then moved to kind of the video production side of it. So I filmed for a fishing show for 4 years, and that was fantastic. It was a pretty cool format we did. We aired on what was at the time FSN, now it's Valley, but we filmed Monday, Tuesday, and then aired a high quality broadcast 30-minute show on Sunday. So it was great because all the information was real time. It was on on linear TV, and I got to learn a ton. Right, instead of filming in a whole season of shows and then having to go back and edit and be like, oh yeah, you screwed up here. You get that feedback real time. So we traveled kind of across the upper Midwest, Canada, and a little bit of the West, and got a ice fish. There was after 4 years I was pretty burnt out because rain, snow, or shine, no matter if it's 30, 40 below, we're out there. We have to put a show on the air and
producing content. Yeah.
So it got to be a little brutal, and I love fishing. I fish a ton, but hunting was my real passion, and had an opportunity to end up through a contact at the Outdoor Channel, said, hey, there's this guy down in Mississippi that's looking for an executive producer. And I was like, dude, whatever. Like I'm in Minnesota. Like I'm not gonna move to freaking Mississippi. Like everything is backwards down there. Like that is 1,000 miles away from home. I'm not doing it. He's like, well, just do me a favor, hear him out, maybe go down there, meet with them. And so the company was Primos Hunting. and went down there, and people were great. Will, Jimmy Primos, Brad Ferris, like all just fantastic people. Mike Powell, who you probably know. Just like I got down there, it's like, man, this is cool. These people are great, a great company to work for. And a month later, I was in the truck headed south. So, and loved it. Just again, fantastic people. So I produced a TV show for 5 years. I was down there, and then also was the marketing director for a suite of brands: Primos, Gold Tip, Bushnell Trail Cameras, Bee Stinger. So, unreal. It was great. But I was getting to the point where it was like, yeah, I kind of want to move back to Minnesota if the right opportunity comes. And I had actually met some people that worked at onX, and they're like, oh, we're opening up this Midwest position. And at the time it was I mean, there were maybe only 1 or 2 remote employees. So it was like, yeah, we'll see kind of deal. And it was right in the height of COVID. So like right as COVID was happening. So everything was everyone was unsure. It was kind of weird times, but, I ended up getting the position and coming back up here. And it kind of started as a Midwest position and then kind of morphed into more of a species aligned deal. So, and here we are today. I think I've been with the company now 3 years. So, time flies, man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to me to get people's stories, because I could count on one hand the number of people that are involved in our industry that went to school for it.
Right.
Like got a marketing degree or a business degree, and this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. It's always something else, where it's a lot of natural resources. I talked to a lot of, in my case, it was a teacher going into education, and now it's like, it's just wild. And I think the common denominator there is being open to try new stuff, being open and to take a challenge. Like you said, I'm not moving to Mississippi. That's backward down there. And all my Southern friends are rolling around right now. Like, no, it's up north. It's backward,
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's not Minnesota. It's not, it's not Michigan. I can't believe you're going to move to Wyoming. You don't know anybody out there. And it's like, well, I'll meet people,
Right.
Being willing to take that step, I think, is huge. And it's just amazing. Your story is inspiring, because you weren't afraid to try something different, to try something new. And now here you are, and back in Minnesota. And I'm assuming that's home base for you.
Yep, that's kind of where I grew up, and my family's around, my wife's family's around. So like I said, we've got a young daughter, and just, takes a village. So, and not to mention, I grew up around here. So close to North Dakota, close to South Dakota, the Northwoods. So it's just, it's home. Right. But what I always, to your earlier point, what I always tell people is, you can't be afraid to just go out and just do it. Right. And you can look at a resume or look at a job posting and be like, geez, I am not qualified for that at all. Versus just saying, well, like, I'm kind of qualified. Like, why not? What's the worst they can do is they can say no. Right.
Right.
So between that and networking, and not networking for like personal gain, but just meeting people, going out, doing it, whether it's if you're wanting to get into the industry, it's like, go to a local, go to a Pheasants Forever banquet or a Ducks Unlimited banquet, and you might meet somebody there who knows somebody, and pretty soon down the line, like, that connection comes back, and you can help them or they can help you. So I mean, that's been the biggest thing in terms of kind of moving around or getting into an industry is that's so important.
Yeah. And it's, I think about what you said about, getting involved, going to a Pheasants Forever banquet, for example. And that takes us to somebody else I got to get on the podcast in the next couple of weeks, is Jared. But, oh man, we had a ball out there. But it's one of those things that I read something interesting earlier this week about getting people involved in the sport and getting people involved in hunting, and how there's a temptation to be like, no, I want to take that guy because he might take my spots. Or, we have an example out here. When I first moved to this area of Wyoming, had a good friend who was running an outfitting business out here, and he had permission on this big family farm, and great local family, very big family, lots of kids. And one of those stipulations to being able to hunt their stuff was we take their youngest kids. They're 2 young boys.
Sure.
Well, now those 2 young boys are teenagers, virtually on the cusp of graduating high school, and we don't hunt there anymore because they're hunting it.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's a small loss to have developed a passion for hunting in 2 young people,
right,
who are taking buddies and who are hopefully going to do the same thing that we did when they're in their 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. They're going to take somebody else. And so I think those fears are, you might lose a spot, but what about the greater good? Whether it's taking somebody to, I was talking to a guide from my old stomping grounds back in the UP, and he's a young guy, and he's running trips and a lot of the same stuff. I'm sure he's hunting a lot of the same covers that I hunted.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of that stuff's aged out too, but he said he has a strict no phone policy where he's got a lockbox in his truck, and their phones at the beginning of the day, their phones go in that lockbox and they don't get them back till the end of the hunt.
Yeah.
And he watches them. He'll shut them off and put them in the lockbox so they can't. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, I get it because you don't want to, as an outfitter, you don't want to take somebody to a spot and then 2 weeks later you go back and they're hunting it.
Right.
Which that's sportsmanship. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I think, what you said about networking is important beyond just getting a job, or what you could get out of it. It's how can you help somebody else? How can you help the resource? And I see some of the conservation stuff that you guys at onX are involved in, and I applaud that. I think that's awesome. Like, what are some conservation projects that you guys are working on right now?
Yeah. So one thing that that I'm specifically working on is we've had a great relationship with Pheasants and Quail forever, and we've done a lot of access through them, access projects. We've got a pretty cool one that hasn't been released yet, but it is going to open up a pile of new walk-in lands, like thousands and thousands of acres we're working on with them. So that'll be coming out. Here in August, and that kind of will go hand in hand with, you've seen the corner locked report, the land locked report. Now this newest one will be talking about walk-in lands and a bunch of interesting statistics around walk-in, whether it's different states, etc. So with that, we said, well, heck, like, again, put your money where your mouth is. It's like we are giving a lot of money to open up more access, because like you've heard it, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking it. It's like, onX is, I wouldn't say ruined, but they have opened up a lot more spots, a lot more different pieces of property that you wouldn't have known otherwise. So while there's people like me, and I'm sure you, or it's like, this is great, the world is my oyster, I can go do anything. On the flip side, there's people saying like, well, that used to be my honey hole and now it's not anymore.
I have a spot like that personally that I used to deer hunt and turkey hunt in, and I don't hunt it anymore. Because it back when I found it, there was one other guy that would hunt in there, and it's a little hard to get to piece of public that you kind of had to know how to get in there. And now there's no secrets.
Yeah.
Good. But I've also gotten other spots that I've unlocked because of using onX.
Exactly.
It's a give and take, man.
So exactly. So with that, it's like, well, a lot of people are feeling a lot of people are feeling the pressure, right? Like a lot of spots, There's new people hunting it. So it's like, well, what can we do to help alleviate that? And that's just creating more access, whether that's us donating money to create access to also like just building general awareness. Like we're a company, like we're a small company in the grand scheme of things. But hey, what if, you gave $100, I gave $100 supporting, our RMEF or Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited. And all of a sudden you get 150,000 people donating $100, and hey, you can start to make some real change, build some more access, create new habitat. And then that was that's been a founding principle of onX since the beginning is giving back, creating this public access.
No, I love that point. Working with some of those NGOs, we were actually on the Eastman side of things, we were actually able to work with you guys and TRCP to bring awareness to the public easement stuff that's going on in the West. The name of the film is Paper Trails, and it's on the Eastman's YouTube channel. And there's all kinds of easements through BLM and National Forest and whatever it may be. These are agreements with landowners that there's an easement across a piece of property, and they're not really on map. A lot of them aren't on maps.
No.
And there's hundreds of thousands of them all across the West and a lot of other states as well, that nobody knows about because they're filed in a drawer in an office somewhere.
They're not advertised. There's no signs in a lot of the cases. So it's like, if you don't know, you don't know.
And there's the Public Land Access Act is trying to get these easements digitized and put into databases. And I'm trying to think of the geo files. So companies like onX can get a hold of them and put them in a layer so you can see. You're sitting at an intersection and you're like, man, that's a really awesome slough over there to hunt pheasants in, but I don't think I can get there because this road looks like it's private and goes across through this corner, and you pull it up. If we were able to digitize all of those, and it's a mountain of work. I mean, it's the office in Missoula where those are housed. A lot of them are housed. Holy smokes. It is. And they're not just like thrown in a file cabinet. They're highly organized, but they're not digitized. Yeah. And there's some written on like napkins, there's like scribbled on maps, handwritten notes. It's amazing what these are. That video really, really brought to light a lot of that stuff. And it's kind of centered around a couple of different antelope hunts that we did last year, but really cool film. But that's the kind of stuff that onX is working with NGOs and working with content producers like Wingmen and Eastman's to help forge those things so people can get more access. Because you're absolutely right. Okay, so I lost a turkey hunting spot. Yeah, big deal. I got 4 brand new ones, because I didn't know existed. So it's a catch-22, like you said, but I think the good in the end outweighs some of the criticism. Yeah,
exactly. And at least for me personally, like a lot of the enjoyment I get out of hunting is hunting, finding new spots, new areas. Like if somebody don't get me wrong, like if somebody sent me a pin and say, hey, go here, it's like, that's cool to go shoot some birds, go shoot some ducks, whatever. But I like the process of figuring out the whole thing. Cause for me, it's more rewarding to just like have that whole dynamic, put it together, and then find birds. So like when someone says, look, are you afraid of somebody going back to your spot? It's like, meh, I'll go find new ones. And it's like, it might sound a little flippant, but like I genuinely enjoy just going out and be like, well, so all of a sudden there's 5 people here. Well, I'll just go explore this new area.
Right. That's part of the fun. I mean, everybody loves having a honey hole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody loves having that spot they can just go to after work, run in there 10 minutes, and they're hunting, and they're going to probably be successful.
Yeah. But
part of the fun for me of hunting is exploration and adventure. And I think back to those days, like pre-GPS even, where you're just stumbling around in the woods. You know, I'm looking at an old Forest Service map going, well, there's a river that comes down here and butts into a clear cut there, and there's a power line that goes across. That'd be a great spot for woodcock to hold up.
Yeah.
Corner. And you go check it out.
Yeah. Go do it.
That's the fun stuff. You can still do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can still do that. And you can have that instead of carrying around all those paper maps. It's right there in the palm of your hand.
100%.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Ben, what are your fall plans, man? What, you know, you're a busy guy and you said you get to hunt a lot, but you've got to come up with a hunt plan. Otherwise stuff just gets away from you.
That it does. And that's kind of, you know, your calendar, the calendar kind of fills in fast, but
I'm writing an article for for EHJ, the next issue, right? I just finished it, about planning your hunts and how to plan your hunts. And that's just big game. But I talked about, these are the tags I've got. These are the dates that I'm going to be looking at. This is how I decide to do what. And then I've got to factor in sage grouse and waterfowl and all this other stuff. But it's crazy. You have to make a plan.
Yes. Oh, I completely agree. I've got a whole separate calendar that is just nothing but like trips and logistics, so I can like just keep my life straight. So anyways, it'll be this year will be fun. It'll be kind of a mix of some new things and some things that I've done in the past that I enjoy to do. But so I'll be heading out west to start opening weekend and go chase after Huns and Sharpies.
Cool.
And then from there, I'm going to spend probably 2.5 weeks up in Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Where are you going to be? I mean, are you going to be freelancing, or are you going with an outfitter?
No, freelancing. So
cool.
I've never done it up in that area before. I've hunted Manitoba, and then eastern Saskatchewan, but I've never hunted in that, Alberta, Manitoba, or Alberta, Saskatchewan. So I just started to look at maps, and I was like, I'll give myself 2.5 weeks and just going to go do it. Like, just going to go figure it out, knock on doors up there. There's some public land, but not very much. So
no. When we went through there last year, you guys had just added the Canada layer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to use onX north of the border for the first time. And we're riding along, and I got my phone on the dash, and I'm just watching it. And there's where we were going through, there were birds everywhere, and there were guys freelancing in that area. You didn't see a lot of them, but I think 2 or 3 different setups. You'd drive by in the evening, there'd be some dudes out there in the field doing their thing, but really, really not very much of it, and all private property.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of it.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to go figure it out. Right. So we're going to go chase after, I'm going to go there like the middle of September. So probably end up chasing dark geese and snows a fair amount. Maybe towards the end, get into some ducks. I'm sure then they'll be pretty brown and ugly, but
that was when we went last year. It reminded me of opening day of duck season in the UP when I was a kid. It was, you're shooting brown ducks, and up there, 8 ducks is 8 ducks. It's right. where we were, and we were way up north in Alberta. You could tell. I mean, if you really knew what you're looking at, you could tell species. But picking out drakes from hens, pretty tough.
Right. It gets tough when you're looking at you have to focus on bills and like, oh, I see a little patch of, a little green on their head. Yeah. So anyways, I'm really, really looking forward to that. So we'll go hunt, go shoot ducks and geese and snows in the morning, and then chase after Huns and Sharpies in the afternoon. So
that'll be a ball.
A lot of people go up there and hunt geese or waterfowl, but it's still kind of the last frontier for upland. So I'm looking forward to exploring that as well and seeing how that goes. So
all right, guys, the sponsor for today's episode of the Wingmen Podcast is Federal Premium. We have been partnered with Federal since the beginning of Wingmen, and I personally couldn't be happier about that. I think that Federal makes the best shot shells on the market, and I say that because I've been shooting federal shot shells since I was a kid. I used to run a trap line when I was a kid for spending money and help me get some hunting gear. And I would always buy 1 or 2 boxes of 20 gauge shells at the beginning of the fall, usually August or September. When I got old enough and started hunting waterfowl and graduated to the 12 gauge, I would buy a couple boxes of, had to be steel. It was steel back then. And I always bought federal. Back in those days, I was usually buying what would equate to the blue box federal right now, which blue box is either Speed Shock or, well, Speed Shock and steel. And I believe it's like Top Gun would have been my upland bird load for grouse and woodcock back in the day, and rabbits and whatever I needed. But the point of that is I've been buying federal ammunition since I was a kid, back in the old days in the, well, I'm not going to date myself, but I've been buying it a long time. I've believed in that ammunition for a long time. It's something that my family always shot growing up, and I'm so proud to be partnered with them, and the fact that we can bring you messages like this and content like we bring thanks to federal. So if you're looking for shot shells out there, you should be giving federal your first look.
I tell you what, I would do the trip we did last year in northern Alberta was a goose and waterfowl and bear combo. And we hunted the exact opposite. We hunted waterfowl in the mornings, and then we did bears in the afternoons. And I'll be dropping that video in a few weeks here. We're going to drop it in September. Kind of align with some of those season openers, you know?
Yeah.
But it was, what got me were the amount of rough grouse.
Oh, so you were way up
and
there.
And spruce grouse. Yeah, we were way up. We were about 100 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. We were up in the Peace River country.
Yeah, you're up there. You'll be a little bit farther north than I was.
Yeah, it was a haul from here. It was 18 hours from Powell, Wyoming. But I asked, I was like, do you guys ever have anybody like come up and hunt grouse? Because it reminded me of the good old days back when a high cycle gear in the UP when I was a kid. There were birds everywhere, and they were, spruce grouse are spruce grouse. They're like our blue grouse out here. They're pretty unsophisticated, right?
Yeah.
But the roughies were just wily enough, man, where they would have held for a point, but they would have flushed when you walked in and busted them without like running out from under a dog. Where point, move. And I asked, and they're like, no, we've never had anybody hunt birds. And I'm like, oh.
God, you don't tempt me, Todd. Come on. Add another 12, 14 hours onto the trip.
Well, the thing about it is up there is there is quite a bit of public ground that you can hunt. Oh. And as long as you know what to look for in those covers, it's just, what you run into up there is legit. It would be a logistical nightmare. You'd have to base out of one of those little northern towns.
Yeah.
Because there's no way just getting gas every day in some of those places, you're not going to be able to do it DIY. It's just going to be too far. So you'd have to base out of a town somewhere and just hunt around some of that stuff. But dude, it was
interesting. And
I don't know what the logistics are for getting a dog into Canada. I didn't even check into it.
All you need to get into Canada is generally it's like they'll issue, like, you go to the vet and you ask for a health certificate.
Yeah.
That, and then, rabies. But I pretty much I show up with that health certificate, which has got everything on it. And I've never even been asked for it. So
really,
yeah, pretty smooth sailing. They look at the setup, the dog, blah, blah, blah. Like, they can tell that, the one thing if you're hauling in a mangy, nasty dog.
Yeah, exactly. So, you roll up with a rusty truck and a bed full of Mutts.
hounds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, so
Exactly.
it's been super easy, but that's really interesting. Especially I can see for the grouse because I watch like YouTube videos. Like that's how I learned to, what good cover looks like in a lot of the places. It's like I'll go on YouTube, but I'll go on YouTube and I'll Google Canada grouse hunting or Canada partridge hunting.
Yeah, partridge.
And I don't think the only time I've ever seen somebody get off the road to in those videos is to go get one that they shot from the road that flew into the bush. So to your point, I don't think anyone hunts them. Actually hunts them.
No, they're a bird of opportunity. We were staying, the outfitter we were staying with, the cabins, his guest cabins are just down the hill from his house, and his kids are always running around. He's got a passel of young kids, and that was fun to watch. But the boys are running around. They got their BB guns, and they're hunting all these rough grouse that are in the bush. But the other thing, though, that time of year, it's so thick. That stuff's hard to hunt because it's the same thing. When I was a kid growing up, we didn't hunt rough grouse until like the end of September, first part of October, because the woods are so thick.
Yeah, it's a jump.
Yeah, and it was the same thing up there. But it would be like hunting ATV trails or old roads, or you just pick one that meanders through a bunch of public ground and just turn your dog loose and go for a walk.
Yeah,
that'd be the way to do it.
Yeah,
but that's a long drive to hunt rough grouse, especially when you got them right in your backyard. Yeah.
Well, that's what. Yeah, and I block off all of October. I try not to do anything else but grouse hunt. I'll probably take a trip out to North Dakota to go hunt ducks, but I try to save October, especially just because the numbers the last few years have been phenomenal. So
that's what you guys were saying, and everybody I talk to that lives back there, like, dude, the bird numbers are through the roof right now.
Yeah, and really, because the birds they grouse operate, or their populations fluctuate on a 10-year cycle. And we're supposed to be coming down. Generally, years ending like in 9, 0, and 1 are the peaks. And so we're supposed to be 2 years down right now. But what I've seen this spring is it's shaping up to be a better year than last year. So
wow.
Yeah. So it's something where it's like I've punted a few trips already that it's like I just need to stay. I've got a little puppy. I need to stay close to home and get them into birds. So
yeah, when you've got that many birds and a young dog, you got to prioritize a little bit because you just don't get opportunities like that all the time.
No, yeah,
you just don't.
People talk about raising a dog on a down bird year, and it's like you might be getting like 5 contacts a day versus like I fully well expect to get a young dog into 25, 30 birds a day.
Yeah.
So
and they figure it out fast when you're doing that.
Yeah.
A little bit of correction from you, and then they're just doing what God made them to do,
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? So my dad, you ran into my mom and dad last fall.
Yeah.
At Pine Ridge Grouse Camp.
Yeah.
And my parents came home. They're like, "Yeah, we ran into some guy, and I don't remember about," and they couldn't remember your name. And anyway, you and I bumped into each other. Like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Are you gonna go back to Pine Ridge at all?
Yeah, I'll be up there. So I've got a cabin. My parents have a place just south of Pine Ridge, about a half hour away. So Jerry Habel, who owns it, we're good friends. So I always go up there and stop up and go eat dinner with them.
Cool.
So I'll be up there 3-4 times.
Yeah, that's cool. You'll probably see them again. They're going back. They got Dad got some pretty good dates in October this year. Everybody wants that second week, prime. And I don't think he's the second week, but I think he might be the first week of October. So he'll have a good time no matter what.
That's awesome.
And he might have a new lab puppy to bop around with too. You never know.
Well, you can use that line on him, be like, you're probably not going to have a bird year like this for a while. So
exactly,
you better get one.
Well, and they crying out loud, man. He lives on my brother's farm in Northeast Iowa, and they've done extensive predator management on that place the last couple of years since they moved in, and they've done it all. I mean, they knocked down. They had ridiculous numbers of coyotes. Ooh. I mean, ridiculous. And like you would literally go there for Christmas, and there was always like a whitetail doe hunt. It seemed like at Christmas with muzzleloaders, and we'd be gutting deer, and the coyotes would be 100 yards away, sitting in the CRP, just howling. They could smell that blood, and I was like, "You got to do something about your coyotes, dude."
Yeah.
And so you knock down coyotes. Well, then, if you do that, you get too hard on that. Then, as you know, your nest predators can go crazy.
Yeah.
So then my dad started doing a bunch of nest predator control, trapping. And I think in the last 3 years, he's killed, I don't know, I want to say like 200 coons.
Wow.
And well, quite a few skunks, but mostly raccoons. And last year, he raised, Dad keeps pretty good tabs on it. It's not a giant farm, but he raised 15 different broods of pheasants, 15 different clutches on the farm around in the CRP. And he's like, we had turkeys everywhere, poults, different, like I think 4 or 5 different batches of poults with hens. And he's like, for the first time ever, we've got quail on the farm.
No kidding.
Yeah. And Huns. Had a covey of Huns show up.
What the hell?
Yeah. He's like, all because I made this little zone where they've knocked the predators back, and the habitat's phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, and my brother's seeing his fawn counts are up, you know, in the spring because he doesn't have as many coyotes. It's all kind of works together. But I told my dad, I'm like, you live in you got a pond, you have obstacles, you have the dream setup to train a bird dog. You need a bird dog.
Yeah.
Whether it's just whether it's a retriever or a pointing dog, whatever, you need a dog, man.
That's super cool. And it kind of brings me back, or it reminds me, it's like, man, I wish that, I wish the fur prices were worth a damn, so more people would trap. But like, that's a huge issue, you know. Obviously, all the issues plaguing the wild turkey right now.
Right. That's one of the biggest, though.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, for people to go out and just trap more, or, you know, a lot of the public lands, you can trap on public lands, right? So like, it makes me want to just go, you know, I've got a bunch of just dog proof raccoon traps. It makes me just like, hey, I should go out.
That's all he uses. He just uses those dog proof reach in, and he'll send me videos where he'll have 6 raccoons in a line 10 yards apart along his driveway. And yeah, it's been amazing. I wrote a blog about it earlier this spring, but I'm seeing it, you know, today. I was reading the Outdoor Wire this morning when I got to work, and the last thing in there is talking about is catch and release fishing in the Gulf of Mexico. And is it the right thing to be doing right now? They just canceled a tarpon tournament down there that's been going on forever because it's turned into a shark fest the last few years, where they're fighting these tarpon and these sharks are just eating them right off the end of the line, or they'll release one and as soon as they let it go, bam.
Yep.
And it's because there's been so much protection placed upon sharks, marine mammals, birds like cormorants.
Oh yeah.
Dude, they're watching a massive impact. They're having packs of bottlenose dolphins follow guide boats into areas where they're fishing for sea trout or redfish, and as soon as they catch fish, let it go. The dolphins got it.
That was when I was in Mississippi. We had a place in Louisiana, and I fished a lot down there. And yeah, like you were on a good school of specs, and yeah, you're you know, I at the end, like I would just take them and just toss them up as far as I could near the grass or near the rocks, because if you dropped it off the boat,
gone,
no chance.
Yeah,
they'd get eaten. So yeah, I can see that being a huge issue. And
I think this, I call it a predator fetish. I think the predator fetish literally has done more to hurt our game and fish populations in the last 5 to 10 years. We could say 15 to 20, really.
Yeah.
When I was commercial fishing in Alaska, the second year I was there, the seals were our fish run was pretty minimal. So whenever we had fish hit the net, man, you had to be on them immediately. And we're literally working our way down one end of the net, and the seals are working their way down the other. And I made no money. And it's like, okay, yeah, that hurt a little bit to lose that money. But what I was more concerned about was there's so many of these seals and they're so brazen. You'd see them at the river mouths just cruising and they're just whacking salmon.
Oh, yeah.
And dolly vardes, whatever's coming in and out. And I was like, man, that's just one little ecosystem that I saw in one part. And we made these protected classes of animals that we can't control to the detriment of other species.
Right.
I look at, it's no secret here, the wolf problem in the West and in the upper Great Lakes.
Yep.
And it's crazy, man. It's the predator fetish.
Yeah. And I mean, you're 100% right. It's like once you control one thing, then the other thing, like, if you're not going to shoot any wolves, then they're just going to explode until deer populations crash. And we impact that a lot more than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And like we are being bad stewards of the land by, I guess I shouldn't say, I mean, I don't know. Like,
no, you're not wrong. I think what you're getting at is there's a balance that needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
Where you've got to balance predators with other populations as well. We're putting the finishing touches on a 3-year-long sage grouse film that we've worked with you guys on.
Yep.
And it's massive, dude. I mean, we had to cut it down and it's still an hour. It's like, what do we cut out? What do we cut in? But one of the things that I wasn't prepared for in the research and started talking to people was the impact that ravens have on prairie nesting birds, like sage grouse, like sharptail. These, you watch and out here, ravens will cruise, just hovering carrying on those wind currents 5-10 feet off the ground. Well, they're looking for nests, especially this time of year, or they're looking for young birds. And it is unbelievable what a massive impact ravens can have on songbird populations and on sage grouse populations. And when you have a low number of birds anyway, and habitat that's maybe compromised, and then you throw a highly efficient predator like a raven on the landscape, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. And there's no control. Yeah, we have government trappers that can get permits to do some.
Yeah,
but not much.
Tip of the spear.
Yeah.
Because like what I was thinking about before is like, in throughout history, there were predator prey, I guess interactions. Like I think they call it like Lodka Volterra interactions. As predators increase, prey decreases until it crashes, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, here comes the prey. So in this case, let's just say sage grouse, right? But so I was like, well, are we doing a disservice by like managing that? But what I was thinking is like, well, this wouldn't be a problem, but we have done a great job as a human population of destroying so much habitat that now it becomes an issue, right? If there was a ton of habitat, those cycles would be able to happen but now we don't have the habitat to support that. So all of a sudden it gets up really high and all of a sudden there's nothing left, or so few left that it will probably never ever get back to where it once was. So
you're spot on, dude. And we see it with our wolves here in the West, like, oh, well, once they reach a carrying capacity, they'll come back down. Well, we've never seen that carrying capacity. And the only reason that, like where I live, the wolves we have wolves, obviously, but we get to hunt them. And Wyoming's done a really nice job in particular of keeping those numbers manageable, where they're not having the massive impact that they had before we could manage them. But you had the Gardner elk herd, for example, in northern Yellowstone. Before wolf reintroduction, it was 20,000 elk. Now there's 2,000. and those wolf numbers aren't coming down. You would think, okay, well, they've trimmed off the fat of the elk herd. Now that we'll start to see a correction in the wolf numbers, and it hasn't happened because there's other things that they will eat, including themselves. And it's like, you guys see that in the Great Lakes. You're battling to get control of your wolves. I know guys that have bird hunted their whole lives, had camps in the UP, sold their camp, left the UP, whatever, and moved downstate to where there's no wolves, and they don't hunt up there anymore because they're afraid to lose their English setter.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know a lot of guys up in northern Minnesota that deer hunt, and they see more wolves than they do deer. Like if they see one deer, it's a great day or a great season.
Same thing in the UP. Same thing.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I don't mind wolves, but again, like it's just all everything in moderation, right?
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
So,
and there's a lot of I have some friends out here that are like, they just need to be gone. Just need to get rid of them. I don't feel that way, but I definitely think there's a balance that needs to be struck, and we have to manage them. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because it's not just wolves. It's not just grizzly bears. It's not just ravens. It's sharks, and it's porpoises, and it's cormorants, and it's all these different things. It's pelicans, you name it. You protected a class of animal, and now they're holy smokes, we just get off on a rant.
Yeah,
but
really, I know. Just left field here.
That's all right.
Yeah.
No, it's good, dude. Those things need to be talked about, and I feel like platforms like this are the places that those conversations should be started and should be had. People can listen and then maybe make up their own mind, go do some reading and some research.
Yeah, like I'm gonna definitely, like, again, like you're picking up little things here and there. Like I didn't think about like the raven aspect, but it makes complete sense. So like, yeah, just something to pay attention to, and then all of a sudden it comes up in legislation or game and fish conversations, and then you can at least be informed versus be like, well, I've never seen that happen,
right.
or just
right.
Well, so just to be informed on these subjects is.
And that's why we do the projects we do, because it's about conservation. It's about doing what's best for for all of the animals, not just, sage grouse. But you get a year like what we've got here, coming off of a ridiculously hard winter, and it has rained. I've been checking in with my in-laws in Iowa who still farm, and they're like, yeah, we got like an inch of rain in the last month. And we get 7 inches of rain in my part of Wyoming. Total.
Yeah. Wow.
Total 7 inches. We're sitting at 5 right now. It has rained almost every day for not quite 2 months. I've never seen, there's flowers in places I've never seen flowers in the desert.
Interesting. What do you think that'll do?
Crazy. Well, what it's going to do in the short term for habitat is everything's going to be just verdant. It's just going to be lush. It'll be interesting to see now we're supposed to get this weather pattern supposed to break, and we're supposed to get no rain. Yeah. But it's supposed to stay fairly cool, which a lot of that stuff will stay green. I think in the areas of Wyoming in particular where that's happening, or the areas of the West where it's happening, you're going to see increased feed for your sage grouse numbers. You're going to see better habitat, because if we have denser, thicker habitat, those ravens are going to have a harder time, competing. You're going to see less cheatgrass fire initiation because it's not going to dry out as fast.
So one question with that, and it kind of circles around to our other topic. What is that going to do though? You essentially you're just growing fuel load at this point. So really, it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It can be in those areas that are heavily influenced by cheatgrass.
Yeah.
Your fuel load could increase dramatically if things stay cool and damp. Even the cheatgrass will have a harder time burning up, which is good. but it also has helped the sagebrush rejuvenate, and it has grown the annuals, the native annuals that grow every year. They're huge. I mean, you walk through the desert right now in sage grouse habitat, and it's thick.
That's awesome.
Like they have food, they have places to hide. Yeah, if it dries out, we're going to see some fires if it dries out later, but that's part of the deal too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think a wet year like this would help overall the areas that are even cheatgrass impacted areas, because it's going to give those annuals and that sagebrush more power, more growing power.
Yeah, I suppose it puts them in a better position to outcompete those invasive.
Right. It's same situation in, the part of the country where like regions G and H for mule deer out here have been decimated. Decimated. We lost 80% of our deer herd.
Yeah.
And 100% of the fawn crop is gone. But the animals that have survived are returning to an incredibly lush landscape. And they're going to hopefully go into next winter in ridiculously good shape. Hopefully. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, it could have been a real double whammy if it was terrible winter on top of drought.
Right. And it so what that does too for upland birds, kind of get back into the bird number thing, is we've had incredible numbers of chuckers the last few years. Just incredible numbers. And I think because of the terrain that they inhabit, the water, they don't drown. You're not going to lose little birds to drowning. But there's going to be so much food on the landscape for those birds that we could have ridiculous chucker numbers for years.
Oh man,
for years.
Like, after I left you in Montana, that's what I went out and did in Oregon. And it probably the most fun bird I've ever hunted.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So that's good to hear that.
Yeah.
Things are on the up, because I will certainly be coming back west to chase chucker this year.
Get a hold of me, because I've got some really good chucker hunting right here in my backyard.
Yeah.
And my wife was funny. She's like, "You don't hunt chuckers as much as you used to." And I was like, "Because I'm sick of chasing them behind a lab." I love my labs, man. But I said, my next dog's going to be a pointing dog. Probably one of Bryce's litter.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to Bryce about that with High Step Kennels, and I was like, I need one of your pointers. I'm not hunting chuckers without a pointing dog anymore. No, it's like chase my lab all the way to the top of the hill, and then they fly back down the bottom.
It was so great just to see. There's a big cut that goes up in, and my pointer, he'd be 800 yards up, work all the way up, come back down. Is like, man, that just saved me, I don't know, 1,000 vert.
Yes. And you got to follow a lab around. Honestly, when I do it, I make the dog hunt. I make the lab hunt with me. I don't follow my dog. I don't follow my lab out doing the chucker thing. Like in a pheasant field, I'm like, okay, I'll follow the dog, especially if it's just me and a couple guys. Follow him. He knows where those birds are. As long as we're headed towards the right direction, we're good.
Exactly.
But with chuckers, it's like, no, I'm going to pick a line across this hill, and we're walking that line. If there's birds there, they're great.
No, dude, we're doing it my way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no. Come back down here. I'm not climbing that. But no, they're fun. And we had just the last couple of years, it's been ridiculous how many chuckers there are. You'll go out to hunt, and you'll say, I had a late season mule deer tag last year, and a lot of where those deer were migrating into and rutting, it's all chucker country. And I'd be glassing deer, and there'd be chuckers running around in my spotting scope all over the hillsides. And you get out of the truck and you could hear them just everywhere. It was crazy.
Oh, that is so fun. Yeah, man, you're getting me all.
There you go. Come out and see me, dude. Yeah. Come out and see me.
I certainly will.
No, that's cool. That's super cool. Time. It'd be a ball. It would be a ball, but we could throw in some duck hunting while we're talking about it too. So no, that's cool. Well, cool, Ben. I appreciate your time, dude. And
Likewise.
I appreciate the conversation. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't keep you any longer. I'll let you get to work. But if, like I said, you get out this way or you get a wild hair, man, shoot me a message. We'll hook up.
I've got lots of wild hairs, so I'd love to do that. I appreciate the offer.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to end this with the question I ask everybody. If you could only hunt one bird one way, what's it going to be?
It would have to be grouse in the North Woods behind a pointing dog. I don't know. It's there's so much nostalgia or surround. I mean, like throughout history, you know, you read a lot of these old grouse hunting authors and literature, and it's just when you get into the North Woods and you hear a bell on a pointing dog, and there's just something magical about it. It's difficult, it's frustrating. Like when you're counting birds, when you're counting flushes, you're not even counting birds you see or shoot, right? It's maddening. So there's obviously got to be something special to keep you coming back, and there's just something magical about it. So definitely grouse in the North Woods with a pointing dog.
It's interesting to hear what everybody's take is and how regional it is. But I'm with you on that one. And that's one of the things that I really miss about living back there is hunting those grouse behind a good pointing dog. You know, you get a little bit of a fix in the mountains out here in September, but I miss it. That's really cool.
Yeah. And the other thing, like even like with Sharpies too, is like, you know, when you're out there with sage grouse, it's like just to know that these birds are so ridiculously well adapted to this terrain, and like this probably looked like this 1,000 years ago and they were still here. So that's another really cool part about it. So I don't know. I just wrapped up in love with the whole thing. So
no, I hear you, dude. There's one image that's burned into my brain from that hunt we did last year. There was the last day we did that huge push where everybody was in the same hunting the same thing, and we were spread out across a huge draw.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I don't think you guys in the bottom could see it, but at one point there were sharp tail. We worked up that draw all the way to the very top and then wrapped around the backside and came back to the trucks. And there were sharp tail flushing off the top 3/4 of a mile ahead of us. And they were moving. It was late season. They've been hunted hard. They were spooky, right?
Yeah.
But it looked like pheasants in South Dakota. It was waves of sharp tail going off the top of that hill. I don't know. I probably had to watch 150 or 200 Sharpies get off the top of that hill. And I was like, dude, that'll keep you coming back. Even as frustrating as it is, that'll keep you coming back. There's no doubt. Oh, it's super cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll do this again, brother.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.